London is asleep. The streets are silent. The plague has finally faded. For the first time in years, the city feels safe. Then, a glow. Small, orange, inside a bakery. One spark climbs a wooden wall, another catches the ceiling, and within minutes, London begins to burn. By sunrise, hundreds of homes will vanish. By tomorrow, the sky itself will turn black. And before this week ends, London will become the largest firestorm Europe has ever seen. All because of one forgotten ember. Before the fire, London was already fragile. If you walked through the streets in 1666, you would notice something strange. You could touch both sides of the road with your hands. Buildings leaned toward each other like tired old men whispering secrets. Upper floors hung over the street so far that neighbors could almost shake hands from their windows. Sunlight barely reached the ground. Air barely moved. Everything felt cramped. Everything felt dry. And almost everything was made of wood. Timber beams, tar-coated walls, thatched roofs, oil lamps hanging inside windows, stacks of firewood against every house. Even the bridges creaked like ships. It wasn't just a city, it was a pile of kindling. 500,000 people squeezed inside medieval walls that had never been meant for so many souls. After the Black Death, people had rebuilt quickly, too quickly. Cheap houses, narrow alleys, no planning. Fires were common in London, but small, manageable. Nobody believed a fire could swallow the entire city. Nobody imagined what wind could do. Nobody imagined what would happen if the fire never stopped. Thomas Fariner never meant to change history. He was just a baker. His day began before dawn, like always, kneading dough, feeding the ovens, the smell of bread mixing with smoke. By midnight, exhausted, he banked the coals and went upstairs to sleep. Outside, the air was unusually dry, and the wind, strong, stronger than anyone remembered. At around 2 a.m., Thomas woke coughing. His room felt hot, too hot. He opened the door. Smoke rolled in like fog. Downstairs, the oven had cracked open. Coals spilled onto wood. Flour dust caught fire instantly. The entire bakery was glowing orange. He shouted for his family. They scrambled to the window. There was no time for the stairs. Flames raced across the ceiling faster than a man could run. They climbed onto the roof next door. Moments later, the bakery exploded into flame. The first house was gone, but the fire wasn't satisfied. It jumped, roof to roof, like it had been waiting years for this moment. A neighbor threw water. It turned to steam. Another formed a bucket line. Too slow, too weak. The wind screamed through the alley like a bellows feeding a forge. Every gust pushed sparks across the street. Each spark became a new fire. One house, 3, 10, 30. The fire spread faster than people could wake their families. Doors burst open. Children cried. Someone shouted, "Fire! Fire!" Church bells began ringing wildly, not for prayer, for warning. Within an hour, the entire street was burning, but still, many believed it would stop. London had seen fires before. This was just another one. They were wrong. By dawn, smoke covered the sky. The sun rose red, like blood through fog. The smell was everywhere. Burning wood, burning cloth, burning oil. People dragged everything they owned into the streets. Beds, tables, bird cages, chests of coins. A woman carried her mirror. A man carried his books. Another refused to leave at all. He stood inside his doorway with a bucket, as if he could fight the fire himself. He disappeared minutes later. The streets clogged with carts. Horses screamed. Dogs ran loose. Some families headed for the river, others toward the city gates. Everyone pushed. Nobody knew where safety was, because the fire wasn't staying in one place. It was chasing them. There was one way to stop it. Blow up buildings ahead of the flames. Create gaps. Fire breaks. Starve the fire. It was ugly, but it worked. Yet permission was needed. So they woke the Lord Mayor, Sir Thomas Bloodworth. He arrived half asleep, annoyed. He looked at the flames lazily creeping down one street. A woman might piss it out, he muttered. He refused to destroy property. Too expensive, too dramatic. He went home. That decision would cost London thousands of buildings, because by the time he realized the truth, the fire had already become unstoppable. By midday, something changed. The fire grew louder, deeper, like a living animal. It began creating its own wind. Air rushed inward so violently that hats flew off heads. People stumbled. Flames bent sideways, then upward, then spiraled. Entire blocks ignited at once. Warehouses of oil exploded. Gunpowder stores detonated like cannons. Glass melted, iron warped. The heat became unbearable. People covered their faces with wet cloths. Still, their lungs burned. Some dropped their belongings and ran with nothing. Years of life gone in seconds. By evening, London was no longer a city. It was an ocean of fire. Night fell, but it didn't get dark. The sky glowed orange, brighter than day. From the river, refugees watched their homes collapse one by one. The sound never stopped. Crack, crash, boom, like the world ending. And then the wind grew stronger, much stronger, blowing straight toward the heart of London, toward the markets, toward the churches, toward St. Paul's Cathedral, the one place everyone believed could never burn. If the fire reached there, everything would be lost. And the fire was coming fast, very fast. Fade to black. By the time the second night began, London was no longer fighting the fire. London was running from it. From the river, thousands watched their city glow like a furnace. Not dozens of houses, not hundreds. Entire neighborhoods were gone. And the wind was blowing straight toward the heart of London, toward the markets, toward the great churches, toward St. Paul's Cathedral, the one place everyone believed could never burn. If that fell, hope would fall with it. And tonight, hope was made of wood. At first, it had looked like a normal blaze, something men with buckets could handle. Now, it had a voice, a deep, endless roar that never stopped, like the sea crashing against cliffs, like 1,000 furnaces breathing at once. People didn't say the fire anymore. They called it a monster, because it moved like one. It hunted like one. It ate everything. Whole streets disappeared in minutes. Timber houses didn't burn slowly. They exploded. Flames burst from windows like cannon fire. Roofs collapsed inward with a scream of sparks. The heat grew so intense that standing too close felt like stepping inside an oven. Leather boots began to smoke. Hair curled and burned. Skin blistered. Men soaked hats in river water and still couldn't get near. The fire wasn't just spreading, it was creating its own weather. Hot air shot upward, cold air rushed in. Winds screamed through alleys like invisible giants. Some people were knocked off their feet. Others watched in horror as whirlwinds of flame spun down the streets. Miniature fire tornadoes. Everything they understood about fire no longer applied. This wasn't a house fire. This was a firestorm. And London was trapped inside it. By morning, the streets belonged to refugees. Not citizens, refugees. Families carried what they could hold, nothing more. A woman clutched a single spoon. A boy dragged a wooden toy horse on a string. An old man carried a locked chest filled with documents nobody would ever read again. The roads jammed with carts. Wheels broke. Horses panicked. Arguments broke out. Fights over space, over food, over boats. Everyone wanted the river. The Thames was the only thing that could not burn. Boats overflowed. Some sank under the weight. Others drifted helplessly as their owners watched smoke swallow their homes. From the water, London looked unreal. The entire skyline flickered orange. Church towers disappeared one by one. Sparks rose into the air like swarms of fireflies. It looked less like a city, and more like the gates of hell. People didn't speak, they just stared, silently, watching their lives burn. Through the smoke, one shape still stood tall. St. Paul's Cathedral. Stone. Massive. Ancient. Surely fire could not touch something built for God. So people ran toward it. Printers dragged carts filled with books inside. Merchants stacked goods along the walls. Families slept on the floor beneath the great dome. If anything could survive, it would be this. But they forgot one thing. Even stone can burn if you wrap it in wood. Scaffolding covered the cathedral for repairs, dry beams, tarred ropes, perfect fuel. And the air was thick with sparks. It only took one. At first, no one noticed, just a small glow high above, then smoke, then a crackle. Someone shouted, but by the time heads turned upward, fire was already racing across the roof. Tar melted like oil, flames crawled along beams like snakes. Inside, thousands of books caught fire at once. Paper doesn't burn slowly, it erupts. Suddenly, the cathedral became a furnace. The heat trapped inside the stone walls, nowhere to escape. People rushed for the doors. Some tripped, some fell. Outside, the lead roof began to melt. Liquid metal dripped into the streets like silver rain. Then came the sound. A deep, terrible groan, like the earth breaking. The wooden supports collapsed. The roof caved inward. The great cathedral fell into itself with a thunderclap. The symbol of London, the heart of faith, gone, reduced to smoke. And when people saw St. Paul's fall, something inside them fell too. Because if God's house could burn, nothing was safe. Nothing at all. News reached Whitehall Palace. King Charles II didn't hesitate. No more waiting. No more permissions. He rode directly into the smoke with soldiers and gave a simple order: tear it down. If the fire wanted houses, there would be none left. Gunpowder teams moved street by street. People screamed as soldiers marked their homes. Please, not ours. But mercy meant death. Boom, one house gone. Boom, another. Entire blocks collapsed into rubble. It felt cruel. It felt insane, destroying your own city to save it. But slowly, the fire reached empty ground and stopped. No wood, no tar, no roofs to climb. The monster hesitated. For the first time, it began to starve. The fourth night was quieter, still burning, still glowing, but weaker, like an exhausted animal. Families camped outside the walls, thousands sleeping in fields. No roofs, no beds, just blankets on dirt. Children coughed black soot. Women stared at nothing. Men sat in silence, too tired to cry. The city that had once been loud with markets and bells was silent, except for distant crackling, and somewhere far away, a final building collapsing. Then, nothing. The wind slowed. The flames shrank. Ash drifted down like snow. By dawn, the fire was dead. Sunlight returned, soft, gray, cold. People walked back inside the walls, slowly, carefully, as if entering a graveyard. Where streets had once twisted, there was emptiness. Charred foundations, black dust, bent nails. 13,000 houses gone. 87 churches gone. Shops, bridges, memories, gone. A man stood where his home used to be. He tried to picture the door, the window, the stairs, but he couldn't. It was like trying to remember a dream. Children dug through ashes, searching for toys. Mothers found melted spoons. Fathers found nothing at all. London hadn't just burned, it had been erased, like it had never existed. But something strange happened. Nobody left. They could have. They could have gone north, gone to the countryside, started over somewhere safe. But they stayed. Because London wasn't just buildings, it was their life. So they rebuilt. This time differently. No more wood, brick, stone, wider streets, space between houses, planning, order. Architects drew bold designs. Christopher Wren imagined a new St. Paul's, bigger, stronger, beautiful. Not a medieval maze, a modern city. Safer, cleaner, smarter. The fire had destroyed the past, but it had forced London into the future. From ash, a new London rose. Today, people walk down Pudding Lane and never think twice. They buy coffee, take photos, laugh. They don't smell smoke, they don't hear screams, they don't see the sky glowing orange. But beneath their feet, beneath the stone and brick, lies a layer of ash. The ghost of a city that burned for 4 days. A reminder that London once faced an enemy no army could fight: fire. And somehow, London survived. Because sometimes a city must burn to be reborn. Fade out.